Alrighty, so hello and welcome to the Jira Service Management Fundamentals webinar. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here for this basic overview of Jira Service Management. My name is Alexis Heritage and I'm a consultant here at Valiantys. And today I'm going to guide you through JSM's most powerful features. We're going to highlight how it can transform your service management workflows and efficiency for your teams. So just a little overview about Valiantys. So we are a platinum partner solution of Atlassian. We provide skill services such as consulting, licensing, integration, and as well as trading services like we are in here. And we provide these for all organizations, all shapes, sizes, even worldwide. So whether you're working in the cloud version or you're working in data center, our expertise is built on 100% dedication to the Atlassian ecosystem. We are a 13-time Partner of the Year winner. We do collaborations with over 65 Fortune 500 companies. We do have a full stack development center that helps build custom solutions integrations for all of these engagements and clients. We are also, in fact, Atlassian's first global partner, so that's a nice little tidbit that we like to always throw around. And we do have offerings for 24/7 global coverage with a team of over 600 experts. We are here and we are positioned to help maximize the value of your Atlassian tools. So I kind of did give a brief overview, but again, some of the services that we provide, we have consulting. So we help to optimize tools and processes for clients. We do offer licensing, so that way we can ensure compliance and cost efficiency between licensing for clients. We also do our integration and development for custom solutions. We do have some managed services options for ongoing support. And finally, we do have training to empower your teams, whether that is some of our free webinars like you're in here, or we also do have some paid trainings as well. So for a full list of the trainings that I have mentioned, if you go to valiantys.com/services, which will also be put in the chat, you'll be able to view all of our listings of our trainings. In addition to this webinar right here, which is the fundamentals, we also do offer an interactive boot camp that really gives you more of an in-depth and deep dive to Jira Service Management, which is called the Jira Service Management Bootcamp. The bootcamp is a 2-day workshop which covers everything you need to do to effectively and utilize JSM to its highest potential. That course is designed for service desk managers, administrators, or even people who are just wanting to get the basics and know about JSM. It's definitely available for anybody to attend. We offer other boot camps as well for Atlassian products. So we offer boot camps for Jira software. We offer for Atlassian Analytics. To view all of those as well, go to valiantys.com/training, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. The next session for our JSM bootcamp is July 15th to 16th because it's a 2-day bootcamp. So definitely, if you want to look at that, you can take a look at that offering as well as any future dates for upcoming bootcamps. So let's get in a little bit to our agenda for today. So we're going to go through an introduction. This introduction is just mainly going to be about a JSM introduction, just at a brief high level. And then I'm just going to walk through a demo of the system. Again, since this is only an hour, we're just going to be very high level with just brief concepts since this is fundamentals. And then as time allows, we'll go ahead and do a Q&A section where I can answer any questions you guys have for this webinar. So let's just dive into this introduction. So, what is Jira Service Management and who is it for? Jira Service Management initially was designed for IT service management, which has now evolved into a very robust platform that really can serve any service team. It doesn't matter if it is HR, legal, marketing, and then, of course, your IT teams. It can be useful for just about any type of team. Whether that means you're providing services or you're receiving customer support requests, JSM really does offer invaluable tools to streamline your operations. Very key benefits that do come with Jira Service Management So you do have customer facing help centers and project portals, which I will get into on the demo, but those are your clean and simple interface for your non-technical users. Those are going to be for your customers who are actually submitting support requests. Those are going to be what they use. Service management also has service level agreements, or we abbreviate a lot to SLAs. The SLAs, these are going to be how you can measure time metrics for tickets, such as for very common examples are going to be a time to first response or a time to resolution. You have the knowledge base integration. So the knowledge base is going to be powered by Confluence, which is also an Atlassian product. And what that's going to do for your knowledge base is it allows you to not only self-service your customers, but it also can contain your internal repository for your agents as well. With service management, you also have those ITIL based workflows. So you have the specific workflow separations for request management, incident management, problem management, and change management. Service management also does come with a built in approval for a multi step approval with history tracking. So you are able to, like, with an audit log, like track approvals, you can use approval actions. If any of you are familiar with Jira software, there actually isn't a built-in approval step, but rather you could just utilize just workflow statuses. So JSM does offer a built-in actual like approval feature. Service management also has queues, so these are going to be safe filters that help agents triage tickets and work them that are specific for each project's tickets. You do have that email ticket creation. So by default, every JSM project comes with an email channel that allows you to send an email to that address and it's going to create a ticket in that project. Service management also has the virtual agent. So that's going to be an AI powered chatbot, which is available on the premium and enterprise versions of JSM. Rovo's also included in that type of virtual agent area. However, JSM has a specific virtual agent feature that is available. And that virtual agent feature does tie into conversational ticketing that does occur with an integration to Slack and Microsoft Teams. Service management also has built-in automation to streamline repetitive tasks. You'll notice that throughout the Atlassian products, there is automation that exists. However, there are some automation actions that are very specific to service management that can help you streamline a lot of repetitive tasks as well as even enhance actions that need to be taken. And service management does integrate seamlessly with Jira software and even Confluence. But especially for Jira software, if you're very familiar with Jira, with how backend configurations work, or even how the ticket view looks, you're gonna feel it's not gonna be much of a learning curve for you because everything is still backed up by how Jira works, but there are some additional features that do make service management stand out and become different. But you can use JSM as a standalone product, or you can use it in combination with Jira software. So along with this, while this webinar, again, is just the fundamentals, and we're just going to go over very high level, we do have a more advanced webinar that is called uh, ITSM for JSM. And what this one does, it goes further in depth. So it goes over incident management that is powered by operations, which was previously known as OpsGenie. It does go over increased change management. It goes over asset management. So if you do want to check that one out, the next webinar for that one is July 3rd. You can either go to valiantys.com/training, or you can just scan the QR link here and you'll be able to be taken directly to it to sign up. Again, all of our webinars are free offerings, so all you have to do is just sign up and you'll be able to join. And if you happen to not be able to catch it and you sign up, all of these webinars do get posted to our YouTube channel. So even if you do watch it or you didn't get able to, you can always go back to our YouTube channel and you can rewatch this as many times as you want. So with that introduction, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive into our demo. So we're going to start with our demo on the Help Center. So the Help Center, this is a feature that is specifically for Jira Service Management. But before I actually get into the demo, I do definitely want to put out a disclaimer that if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to ask and submit them. We do have a Q&A feature that is up that if you click on it, you can definitely send a question, and then as time allows, I will answer them in the Q&A section. If we don't get to them due to time, we'll make sure to answer them and then send back the response via email to make sure that all of your questions do get answered, even if we don't get to them in the live webinar here. So now back to the Help Center. So the Help Center is a group of Jira Service Management projects where customers can submit requests. They can view the status of their requests, as well as any requests that have been shared with them or that require their approval. You can access knowledge base articles from self-service common troubleshooting and answers to general questions via the search bar, which I will go over in a minute. So with the search bar, you have features such as the search bar, and then there's topics that you see right here. So for example, we have a Confluence space that is connected to one of our JSM projects that is for VPN. So let's say an employee is having trouble connecting to the VPN from their laptop from home. Rather than an employee putting in a ticket just straight away when this occurs, we can utilize and summon Confluence to have a self-help of that issue. So if I say VPN, immediately this search bar is going to look and try and match any article that has either VPN in the title or in the actual document itself, and it's going to throw those. So we can see here that there is an article called VPN troubleshooting, and if I click that, it's taking me to the portal version of the Confluence page. And here I can read all the information and I can troubleshoot my article, including and troubleshoot my issue, including starting out with making sure that a cat is not on your keyboard. So you can do these for troubleshooting, or you can even do them for generally asked questions. Something that I like to do and explain very common is, for example, what is the Wi-Fi password? It's something that does not need a ticket, but it does need to be posted somewhere in order for people to know. So you could create a Confluence page, attach that to one of your spaces that are attached to a JSON project, and then it can display. Topics down here allow you to group together not only request types, but also certain documents that you can immediately paste here. So that way, if there's certain things, let's say for onboarding requests, that you want to group them together, or certain HRs that are most common, so things such as benefits, the holiday calendar, all that, you can create topics directly within the Help Center to allow for very quick and easy selection of request types and documents. So within that, we also can customize the Help Center, the Help Center's layout to tailor more or less to a one-stop shop. So for example, you can add additional sections and type of let's a type of cards to your portal. So in this scenario right here, we also have this banner, which is a type of customizable method, but customizing the help portal, I could move featured portals to be above topics. I could add a layout to include some most common links that will display in a card format. That way they were also clickable. So rather than maybe going into your intranet to have certain links, most common stuff you could put directly on your help center. Along with down here, you can also customize the banner that gets displayed here. You can customize the color of the text. You can also customize and put your own logo up here. And then you have this announcement banner that on the Help Center you can add, but then also we'll go into that each project also has its own announcement banner. So within the Help Center, each JSM project is going to have its own card. Customers are only going to be able to see what they have access to. So therefore, because I have access to multiple projects, I see a lot more. But if I didn't have access to facilities service desk, I wouldn't be able to see it. But clicking on it is going to take me into that project. So if I come in, I'm going to see all of my request types for this project. So within this, so customers can submit requests in a few different ways. So of course we have our project portal that we are on right now. I've mentioned that there's an email channel so that way tickets can be submitted via email and they can come into the project. There is that integration, that chat integration with Slack and Microsoft Teams, which also can be utilized with the virtual agent. But there's also chat widgets. So, chat widgets, these are going to be what's configured on other websites that essentially link to your project. Most commonly, you will recognize chat widgets on big company support websites. For example, if you're just browsing Best Buy, you're going to have a little icon on the bottom right that pops up and says, "Hey, how can I help you?" and attempting to essentially sell you something. That's a chat widget. The only downside to using a chat widget is that on your help portal, you actually have to leave your portal entirely open. You can't restrict it to just who's in your site. So therefore, it allows it so anyone on the internet could view your portal. So that's an only downside to that. But for big companies like Best Buy, that's not a problem. If it's for an external facing support, you're going to want to do that anyway. So just walking through what you see on a projects portal. So on here we have what is called portal groups. And portal groups allow you to organize request types together. And you can have a request type in more than one section. So I could have request a new laptop within any of these other sections. It's just more so for grouping together like processes to make them easy to click on and to access. You can have as many portal groups as you want. You can have as many request types as you want. However, something to note is that each request type that does get put in these portal groups, it will display on this card like this. So right now we can see here, this looks very clean with just a portal group only having 3 request types. But if you were to assign, let's say, 18 request types to one portal group, it will list out individually each single request type, so it can look messy. Ideally, you want to have around maybe 8 max portal groups and around 7 to 8 request types max in there. But again, if you have more, you can always add them. You don't have to limit them, and you don't have a limit to the amount of portal groups or request types shown either. So, as many as you have, you can display. So just going into, let's go ahead and raise an example ticket. So we're just going to start and we'll raise 2 of them. We're going to raise one that's going to require approval, and then we're going to raise one that doesn't require approval. So to raise one that doesn't require approval, we're just going to use the get IT help. And what we are left with right here is the form. The form is going to be how information is intake from the ticket, so that way it translates to the agents to be able to work on them. When you click on a request type, you are able to change what you want. So let's say that I clicked on the wrong one, I could easily click and change it from here. If I need to go to one that's not in this category, I can also click up here, change the category, change the request type, and use the right one. You'll have this disclaimer right here that says any required fields are marked with an asterisk. So that way, if I try to submit and I don't have the appropriate fields filled out, it will not let me submit them. You'll notice that there is this field right here that says raise this request on behalf of. Note that this is an agent only field, so you're not going to see this for every single person. However, you can create this to be used by any customer and make more of a custom solution. That way it is. But this specific field is going to be an agent only, and by default, it will put in who the reporter is and clicking on it. However, I could raise this as someone else if I chose to, which I will do in our next example of with approval. So let's say for this get IT help that Zoom isn't working, and we'll say it won't open. So once I have the information provided, I can hit send, and now my ticket is going to be created since I have all the information needed. On the screen, we'll just go over really quickly. So any of the fields that I fill out, they are all going to appear right here. So the summary is up here, and then the description field I filled out is right here. At any time, I can see my request type, so what I submitted, and then I can see the status that the ticket is currently in. I could turn notifications on and off per ticket. And then I do have some transitions available on the customer portal that the customer is able to do. So, from certain statuses, a customer can be able to escalate, they could resolve the issue, or they can cancel the request at any time without an agent's intervention. The activity section right here, this is where the customer can add comments. So, I'll say this is a customer comment. And when we go over to the agent view, we'll take a look and see how agent comments look when they're left for the customer. But so now that's our request that does not require approval. So let's go ahead and go back to the project and let's submit one that requires approval. Mm, okay. We're just going to go a ticket that I've already submitted before for approval. So for approval, this one right here. So what I had done is that this form asks for the reason for requesting a new laptop. It says if there's any additional fields, and then this one, which is a required field, it makes me select the type of laptop model that I am requesting. So once I filled out all this information, I was able to submit it, and now we're on here. Currently, it shows that this has actually already been approved. So when it does go to approval, I'm going to have two boxes up here. One says approve, one says decline. And for that approval action, I would be able to successfully complete that action. So if I wanted to decline it, I could do that. And then any of the actions that are taken with the approval step, those will appear under activity. So we can see that when it went through approval, it's telling that it requires approval. And then we can see that when I approved it, and then the stats that it went into next, you'll be able to see that on the customer view as well. So since we have some of those requests, let's go ahead and take a look at how customers can view their requests on the portal. By clicking on your profile in the top right and clicking requests, this is where you're going to be able to see any requests that you have submitted. Or if you want, you could either do where you are a participant, meaning that the request has been shared with you. You can filter these by any type of status. So the status here of open and closed, this is going to just go based off of within any project of that type of status. Or you can go by project and the very specific statuses that belong within each one. You can also go by request type within a certain project if you have something very specific you're looking for. And you do have this table view right here that allows you to look and see, and you are able to edit the view. However, the columns that you can sort out in this table are all the ones right here, but you can also drag them and you can remove some if you don't want them. But just know that right now on the customer view, these are the only supported fields to display. The approval one is the same concept where this is going to show you and allow you to see any issues that are waiting your approval, or if you want to see tickets that you have previously approved by clicking on approvals history, we will be able to see any tickets that I have approved in the past, as well as if I wanted to search for them by request type, I would be able to as well. So now that we at least have our request, let's go ahead and put on our agent hats and let's go see what tickets look like on the agent side. To navigate to the agent side directly from a ticket, we can just click on the work item key in this hyperlink right here, and it'll take us directly to the agent view of that ticket. So just a small disclaimer, which this is more available right now, but Atlassian is in the process of changing the term issue to work item, as well as updating the UI from the old to the new. You're going to see in some sections where the word issue is still used, for example, in terms of schemes, or you're going to see work item. Note that they are used interchangeably. It's just that they're currently still working on updating that terminology, not only in documentation, but on the sites as well. So you may hear me a lot more say the term issue because that's just been engraved in me, but note that they are the same if I do say work item. So coming into the tickets, so agents in the tickets, They can view the ticket details, so they're going to be able to view the forms. They can view the attachments, comments, and leave comments. They can use the status dropdown, which we will go over in a minute, that allows you to move tickets through their workflow. They can access suggested knowledge base articles in order to resolve customers' issues or even to use for their own use of guiding of how to fix an issue for a user. As an agent, tickets are going to be the core of your day-to-day activities in service management. So we're just going to go ahead and just do a dive of the work item details view, and we're just going to highlight some of its main elements. So I have already mentioned the work item key and summary. So the summary is going to be what is up top right here. And you are able to actually change the name of the summary just by clicking in it. You can rename it and then you can hit the check mark. The work item key up here, this is going to be what uniquely identifies the ticket. This key doesn't change unless the work item does get moved into a different project, in which case it gets changed. However, it will always be linked back to this key, so if you were to search this key, even if it got moved to another project, it will automatically redirect to that new key. It doesn't lose its previous key. And for the summary, not only can it be set by the customer through a form, but you can also utilize the request form to either automatically set it to a specific summary, or you can utilize automation for Jira to set that, including even dynamically with certain fields that come from the data in the ticket submitted. Coming down here, we have our request type. So the request type indicates the type of request that the customer submitted in the ticket. This field can be adjusted by agents if the customer selected the wrong request type, or if the work item after submitted turns into be a different type than initially thought, it can be changed just by clicking on it. When you click on it, it's only going to show you the request types that are visible for that specific issue type. If you need to change this request type to something that's not under this issue type, all we have to do is just click on this, or we can click on where it says move. We can change its issue type and then set the appropriate request type for it. You can also hide request types to make them visible to only specific users or groups on the portal, or you can hide them entirely for internal use. Very commonly, you're going to hide your request type used for your email channel if it's not something you use on the portal, because you don't want people submitting a email request on the portal that's specifically just for the email channel. And note that request types are specific to Jira Service Management. They are not available within Jira software. Coming up to the right, we do have our statuses and our workflow. So status dropdown, if we click on here, it lets the agent move tickets throughout its lifecycle. So each status here corresponds with a step in the workflow. So if we wanted to move it in progress, if we wanted to move it to pending, escalate, respond to customer. By clicking on this view workflow right here, we are able to see the full workflow of this issue type, and we can therefore see the entire path that statuses can travel to in one another for this ticket. Work items can only transition to statuses that have a direct path to transition to. And these allow you to only go to where you should be. So these paths can either be directly identified, so how waiting for support goes only directly to waiting for customer escalated, or you can have statuses that are available to transition to regardless. So rather than having 4 arrows that go directly to in progress, if any of the statuses can go there, we can include what's called a global transition, and therefore we don't need a direct line that's already going to be there. On the workflow, you can also specify certain transitions to be available to the customer. So how we saw on the side when we submitted a get IT help that it did show that escalate, cancel, and resolved. You can make transitions available to the customer to take action on as well. And workflows can be customized to be as complex or as simple as you want. You can create your own statuses and transitions in order to tailor a workflow to a specific generalized process that the request types will then follow through. Coming down a little bit below, we have our SLAs. So the SLAs are going to also give you a visual representation of your timers. So if you ever see a green check mark, that's going to mean that the work item successfully met its SLA. If you see an orange/yellow, that means that it's at risk for breaching, but it hasn't necessarily breached yet. And when we use the term breaching, that just means that it's not going to meet its SLA. Or if we see red, that means that the work item has breached the SLA, meaning you're already past your designated target goal. Even when your SLA breaches, the SLA is still going to continue to count until it has met its end condition. If the work item meets a pause condition, so even though an SLA starts the timer and has an ending, it also has the availability to be paused. And a very common example is when an issue is moved to pending. Usually, you don't want that to be included in a timed resolution, since if you're waiting on something, that's not a whole lot you can do. So, if you ever get met with a pause condition, you're going to see a little pause symbol on the icon. It's going to let you know that it is currently paused. And then gray, what you see here, this just means that it is currently counting. It's not close to being breached, so you don't have to worry about it. It's just currently in progress. And SLAs are applied to all work items within each project. So even though you may not want to apply an SLA to a specific type, note that it does apply, but if you don't want to, you can just not include a time target and therefore you won't count it against. You can create as many SLAs that you want in a project, but note that you can only go up to 90 goals between all of your SLAs. Goals are going to be what you define your targets to be counted against. So while an SLA could contain one goal and then your next SLA could contain 5 goals, that's going to be a total of 6 goals so far for your project. SLAs are counted towards a calendar, which can either be based on a 24/7 calendar that comes by default, as well as a sample 9 to 5, but it also can be customized to fit your specific needs. So if you have two offices that you want to track with the same SLA, but there's different time zones, you can account for that to even include a lunch break where between 12 and 1 o'clock that the SLA should not count since no one's working. You can put in for that. And each of your targets in the same SLA can have a different calendar. An SLA does not have to just follow one specific calendar. Coming below that, we have our detail section. So the detail section includes fields such as priority, assignee, any custom fields that are set up by the Jira admin that the project administrator can customize on your view. You can put most data and fields here within JSM. However, some fields like summary, you're not going to be able to put on the right side. That's always going to be displayed up top. With each field that's on the view, most of them, if you highlight over, you're going to see a little thumbtack. If you click those, that's going to allow you to pin the field up here. Note that these pins only apply to you. So therefore, if I pin this and someone else goes to look, their fields are not going to be pinned there as mine. So it's nice for some fields that you're always going to look at and you don't want to have to see in the list, or they might not be in the order that you want them in. You can make your own pin field section and you can put them up top for easy access. And per each request type, the fields that display in the details pane can be customized. So this way you can hide irrelevant fields and you can remove clutter. So let's say you have a hardware request, but you also have a software request on the same issue type. You could hide the field that says requested application from the hardware, since after all, it's irrelevant. You don't need to see it. You also have this section here that says more fields. This more field section is a hide field when empty, so therefore if pending reason doesn't have a value, it's going to stay here. So you can choose to either throw those there, or you can remove that entirely if it's never going to be a related field to fill out. You can always do that. That way you don't have as much clutter on your work item view. You can also add forms in existing tickets. So by clicking on this add form option right here, I can choose and add on a form that is currently already built out in the project. So if I wanted to put out IT support requests and I click add, I can now attach a form that is outside of the ticket that I can not only I can make it internal, meaning that it's only going to be an agent only. I can open this up and make it external to allow agents to fill out, the customers to fill out. Forms are very useful for which we will go over in a little bit later section, but they're very good for gathering more information if you need more customizable sections or necessarily you don't need the field to be a custom field. You can also link other work items together by clicking on this. So let's say if you have a major incident going on and you have people reporting that incident, you could link those types of tickets together so that way you can keep track of all the reports of a related request. Or let's say that if you have an onboarding ticket, you could link together all of the sub tickets that are leading up to it to the parent ticket so that way you can keep track of what is going on within those tickets. We do have an activity section down here. The activity section tracks all actions and communications on the ticket. So this is going to include things such as your comments. So we have our internal note, and these internal notes are going to be agent only comments, and they will be identified with a highlighted yellow box. This means that any comment left by an internal note isn't going to be available for that ticket, which we can verify by refreshing the page. And we can see here, even though I'm an agent in the project, I won't be able to see that comment. However, if I come back and do a reply to customer and I hit save, if I come back in the ticket on the portal and refresh, I will be able to see that comment that was made visible to the customer. With these comments, you can also do what is called CAM responses. These are customizable responses that can be easily made to easily insert and save time typing. So agents can not only create their own personal ones, but project administrators can create ones to be shared with all agents in the project. You can do ones that are for very common things. So usually when you say, "Hey, thanks, I'm on it," you can have a CAM response to be used for that. And then you can also insert those into comments and then you can continue modifying those from there. In your activity section, you have history. History is going to show you every detail that for any changes that have been made to the ticket. So, for example, we can see here that automation for Jira made an action and updated the assigned group field. We will be able to see that in here. So that way you can track any changes made to fields for auditing purposes. We also have when I for those linked work items, so if I were to link a ticket to another, I will be able to see that up here, see the status, and see who the assignee is of that. There is an approval section, so this is going to allow you to see the approval history of a ticket. So if it required approval, I'll be able to see when it was triggered, see how many approvals need to occur for it, and then that approval decision action. So similar on the portal, how we saw it said that I approved in that activity section, that's what we would also see in this section right here. There also is a work log section. This is optional. So there is a built-in Jira feature for time tracking. So this allows you to utilize if you would like to track work. If any time you do use that in the activity section, you can use this work log area and you can view and modify your work logs as needed. So we do have automations just at a very high level. I will just go over automations but in service management bootcamp, we do also cover this in depth more for service management. But so automations consist of three components. You have a trigger, condition, and an action. An automation, as a requirement, must have a trigger and an action, as it needs to know when it needs to fire off and it needs to know what to do. You can have conditions which are optional, however, they do provide a variety of options to help not only narrow down the scope of work items you want to execute on, but if you have a certain amount of if this, do this, else do this, those conditions allow you to have those type of branching if else's to be very thorough in any actions you want to take for your work items. So expanding this section right here, this is going to allow us to view any rules that have been executed on the work item recently. Automation for Jira does have that, and if at any time you have automations that are a manual trigger, by clicking on this little lightning bolt up here, we'll be able to trigger any manual automations on the ticket. So while Automation for Jira does have its own in out of box actions, including like add a comment, create a new ticket, change of field value, it also does allow integrations with other systems as an action. So Automation for Jira can restart a virtual machine in Azure. It can send a Slack or Microsoft Teams message. It can add a user to an Okta group. You can utilize webhooks that allow you to take it a step farther, and you can perform actions to systems that support the use of webhooks and send information from the Jira ticket directly to that system. So this is the ticket view. This is where, like I said, agents will work out of. However, agents are going to work out of these queues in order to see all of these tickets. So if we come into a queue, queues are vital for organizing and prioritizing tickets for agents. So by default, you're going to have some default queues. Default queues you're going to see are going to be like your all open tickets, all my tickets. These queues are filter tickets by they filter tickets by criteria, status, priority assignee. You can customize queues to display whatever you would like. Note that when it comes to service management projects, you're only going to see in the queues tickets for that project. We will go over that service management does have a boards feature that you can see tickets from other projects, but your queues specifically here are going to be only those project tickets. And you can customize these queues, but this is going to be a project admin only feature. So while a Jira admin can also perform these actions, there is going to be actions that a project admin can do to customize the project themselves. And these queues, when they are essentially filters, these are backed up by JQL, which is Jira Query Language, which is very common use for filters, dashboards, even in automations is very common. And you also are able to change the columns that display up here. The columns in here can also include any custom fields. So you're able to really be very detailed as to what you want to appear. And there are not any limits to how many queues you can have. You can group stuff by priority groups. So that way you can separate certain queues to only display certain groups of queues together. You can also perform bulk actions, so agents have the ability to select multiple tickets from a queue and perform actions, such as commenting or changing the status of those. Bulk actions can be completed by an agent, however, they do require permissions. So, for example, an agent might have the permission to transition an issue. If you want to bulk transition multiple issues, you're also going to require the permission to perform bulk actions in order to do both. Otherwise, you're only going to be able to do just one at a time. Just like with pinning fields, you can also star queue, so that way they appear in your starred section for quick and easy to access. Just like with those pin fields, they don't appear for others, it's just only for you. And then that board feature for JSM, essentially, this is a Kanban style board directly within the JSM project. And you are able to include tickets from other projects. However, unlike Jira software, where you could have more than one board in a project, JSM is only one board per project, but again, you can customize the filter to include others, but it still follows the restrictions of you're only going to be able to see what you have access to. Coming in for project administration, project administrators can also customize forms, which are going to be how you can gather information. There are two types. You have the dynamic form, and then you have the request form. The difference is dynamic form allows you to use conditional sections to throw information based off of selections. So we have here the section that says if priority selected is high to only show this field then. So if I come into preview, right now we can see that I don't see that other field. But if I select highest, there we go. So any other selection of low to high, I won't see it. But once I select highest, I'm going to see that additional field. This is what sets apart the request form over the dynamic forms. It's because of the fact that these dynamic forms allow you to be very detailed. They allow you to create questions that necessarily don't have to have a custom field in order to gather information. The rule of thumb is that if you don't have to report on the information, you don't have to take a custom field. This is where dynamic forms really help with this. Forms are only available for service management. However, with the merger of Jira Work Management to Jira Software, there is a small form like feature with it for Jira Software, but it's very basic and does not have the capabilities of dynamic forms. It may get there one day, but for right now, the dynamic forms with the capability and detailed, it's only going to be within JSM. And with those fields, you for the custom fields, you can link them, or for some fields that you don't need, that's going to not have a linked field. So on the back end, so I did link that one field, that one form to a ticket, so we can see that when a form is attached to a ticket, I'm going to see that in this view right here. So this is a form that got attached. We can see here it's open for edits. Any fields that I've already filled out prior that might be on the form, it can automatically paste in. And we can see here that this low was selected because of the fact that there's a default value to set low on the form, and then it can be set to whatever it needs to after the fact. Once the information is filled out, if you hit save, that's when the form is sent. However, hitting submit locks down the form entirely. A customer cannot modify this form unless the agent decides to reopen it on the portal for submission. So with that, that does bring us to our Q&A section. So I'm just going to take a quick pause and see if anyone has any questions that roll in. Don't be shy, feel free. You do remain anonymous on these questions. So one question that did just come in. So the question is, can the same ticket exist in more than one project? So the answer to that, not exactly. So a ticket can only exist in one project at a time. However, what you can do is you can essentially clone a ticket and you can put that in another project. So while it is the same ticket, it really more so is just an exact copy. Any information that you put on between each ticket, so if you leave a comment on the parent ticket, that clone ticket isn't going to get any of those updates because it's its own independent ticket. However, if you did need information like that to sync, you could create an automation that sends over information between it. So when one comment's left on this ticket, execute on the linked ticket or the clone ticket to paste that information for comments. So you can do that, but tickets only live in one project at a time. But if you move them into different projects, then they still do retain a history of being in that other project, but it only lives in one project at a time. So another question that just popped up. So can I share a dynamic form with another project? Yes. Yes, you can share those dynamic forms with other projects. So in the system, not only can you copy and make duplicate forms of your forms in a project, you can also copy and paste them into another JSM project. I commonly see this when there are standards for certain forms where no matter what project it is, every form should start out with the same four fields, or if, for example, you customly build the solution to allow a customer to submit on behalf of anybody, you can allow that too In that form, you can build it out once, and then you can just copy and paste to a different project to allow you to not have to rebuild that same form over and over and over again. You can just reuse it, and then you can continue inputting on what specific things you need after the fact. All right, we got another question here. What is the best practice if if after a request creation we need to assign many work actions to other teams in Jira that are not necessarily working in the same JSM project? So when it comes to the collaboration between JSM and Jira, if you are a licensed Jira user, you do have the ability to view tickets within JSM. However, the features that you have within those is limited. So for example, you could get share the ticket with as a requested participant. You can come in, you can leave internal comments, you can change field values, but what you can't do is you can't make external comments. You can't physically assign yourself the ticket, but you can at least type in it. What I see most commonly is if there is work that needs to be done cross project between people, they'll either A, create another ticket and link it to that paired ticket where if a ticket needs to be worked in a Jira software project, that ticket's created, linked to the JSM ticket, and then that work can be done separately, and then the updates can be seen by both parties. Or what can be done is that a ticket can be cloned and moved over, but it's not necessarily that it wouldn't be the same ticket, but you can do cross collaboration between the two. That at least that's what I've personally seen. So, good questions, guys. Keep them on up. All right. What is the best method to direct a service request from the portal to a specific queue? So the best method with that is going to be though it's going to be the answer is those queues. So each of those queues are powered by a JQL query. If a ticket meets that JQL query condition, it's going to be thrown in that queue. But note that a ticket can actually live in more than one queue as long as it meets the specific criteria. So let's say that you have a queue that is for tickets that are in the in progress status. So that JQL is going to be status equals in progress. If any ticket is in progress status, it's going to be thrown in there. So all it does is it matches a condition and it'll be routed to that queue. So you don't necessarily take a ticket and drag it into a queue. It just meets and automatically gets thrown into that queue. Another question that we have, what type of people need licensing? Can a customer view the agent view? So the answer to that is only customers who are licensed can view the agent portal. That doesn't mean that just because a customer is licensed means that they can view that portal. So a JSM customer does not consume a license whatsoever. So in terms of licensing, anyone who only views the customer portal and that is all they see, they do not have to have a license. However, anyone who needs to work on a ticket within JSM, they will need a license and therefore they can view that project. They could view that agent view, but only if you're within added as an agent or an admin in that project, only then will you be able to see the agent view of that project. Another one, can queues be hidden based on roles and permissions? So queues can't be hidden in that sense. What more so it applies to is that it's going to be your tickets more so that can be hidden based off roles and permissions. So there's what's called issue security, which allows you to set conditions to hide tickets from either a certain group of users or just users in general. With queues, you can group them together in what's called priority groups, and then people who need to see them can go access that specific one. So you're not having a long list of, let's say, 20 queues. You group them together, and then therefore you can only view what is needed for those ones, but you can't necessarily hide any queues to those. So a follow-up, we have different teams that are going to be related to specific queues. I have used labels to route a queue for, say, the database group. Is this the best method? So that would depend on any type of fields that are used within that request. So if you have a certain request, let's say for an application access request, and different teams handle those requests. Based on the application selected, you can tell it to route to a certain group or team. We've seen people use assignment groups, which are created with assets, and then we have queues that say tickets assigned to my team. And if you are in that, it's basically acting as the assigned to me, but except it's assigned to my team, and then those tickets will appear here. So you can use labels. Labels are also good, but if you're looking for more of right off the bat, not having to triage and add a label, you could do that. Components are also very common, but it ideally all comes back if you want it to be either directly from the form submission, which means you have to have some type of field to determine that to put in the queue filter, the JQ for the queue, or like you said, you can use labels. There's no wrong way to route uh, there's no wrong way to meet a condition to route to a queue. It's just what makes it identify different is really all. But it is very common for teams, multiple teams to work in the same project and then figuring out how they either route to themselves the best way or keep their queues separate. That way they're not seeing what doesn't apply to them. Love the questions today. They are all good questions, that is for sure. All right. Well, we are reaching the top of the hour, which is going to conclude this webinar. So if you guys have any other additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Put in the chat is my LinkedIn, my email address. Feel free to reach out if you do have anything else. You can also, on this page on your screen, you can scan that QR code and you'll be able to see my information. We do have a YouTube channel, so at any time, any information that we cover here, not only will this webinar be posted, but we do make content across all Atlassian products. I personally make a lot of JSM directed videos, so all that's up there as well. So feel free to check that out. Usually, if you have a question, we probably have a video for it, so definitely check those out. Again, don't forget about our training site as well, valiantys.com/training to view any of our training opportunities. And then remember, for training, the next JSM bootcamp is going to be on July 15th, so don't forget to sign up for that. It really is a good opportunity to expand your knowledge of Jira Service Management. And with that, I will let you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Again, any questions, feel free to contact me. Other than that, see you guys later.